Happy Independence Day, Amazonia.
Welcome to a very special edition of Voices. My name is Ambazonian Independence, and this is Yes, I'm really happy to have Terence in the studio today. He's here for the weekend, and Terence, we are here on October 1, 2019, and I think it's very special that we have you live. People have heard of you. They've seen your work. People don't even know the work that you've done, and I just need to state a few, go through what you've done. I know people have heard your voice. They've heard some of the interviews we've done, but I don't think they know a lot about what you've done. So I'm going to just spend some time and I mention some of it. This piece came very early in the struggle. Make Victoria again. And sometimes Terence does not really write these things for production, but when I see them, it's just like this needs to be shared. And so the first one we produced was Make Victoria again. We Are Expendable No More. This Expendable No More was one of our most popular shows. The United Kingdom treated the territory of her UN trusteeship of then Southern Cameroons and its native inhabitants like a cattle ranch, and disposed of them to her World War II ally, France, to append to their colonial state of Cameroon Republic. It was so popular that people who did not like it found ways to stop it, but with our struggle, you can't stop it. Then he also was the writer of We Shall Meet Again, Peace Walk Fatherland, and Terence. We've also done a lot of, like I already said, commentators and interviews. Let me first ask you, and then we're going to talk about October 1. Let me first ask you, what is driving you in all these pieces? Because they're very creative, they're very focused. What drives you?
Well, it's almost instinctive, we were all born in Ambazonia. We grew up in Ambazonia as Ambazonian children. And when we are confronted with the reality of today, certain sentiments are brought out in us. And a lot of the pieces that I write are based on when I wrote Make Victoria Again. It was an act of rebellion against the kind of they want to rewrite our history. They want to change our national character. They want to take away from us what defines us as a people, as a national personality. And for me, that was a revolt against the attempt of renaming historical towns such as Victoria, of the dismemberment that they did to the territory to create all of these cleavages that some of us are using now to challenge each other and fight against each other. So it was a revolt about a primitive group of people who came into our land, and they've taken it upon themselves to begin to rewrite our history. So Make Victoria Again is an example of that instinctive revolt against these attempts for them to change our national character and, of course, our history.
Yes, and that was very clear. That was very clear in the piece. And you talk about. I was very interested in that piece because Victoria is very central in the history of Ambazonia. That's the place where the British first came, and that's a town that has existed with that name for over 100 years. And so they come and try to destroy that. You know, one of the things that I found very interesting that you did in that piece, you also clarified that Limbe is not a Bakweri name. It's not a name that comes from that territory. It was still the name of a European. So they're replacing a British man with a German.
Yes. Apparently, from what I read when I was doing a little bit of research on that, Limbe became the corruption of a German of Limburg. I think that was the name.
Mm-hmm.
It became a corruption of that name by the locals. So they call that river Limbe or whatever.
Yes. Okay.
And yeah, it's interesting because when you look at some of what we call the Pan-Cameroonese argue when they want to go back to the German entity, they refer to German Cameroon, and it's kind of ironical. Maybe not that Limbe is being named by nomenclature that kind of identifies with the Germans, So it tries to bring us back to that German Cameroon fiction that they try to use when we try to assert our international personality, so to speak.
I almost think that you're giving them too much credit. I think when they named it, they thought that Limbe is a local name, like the same as the name Manu and.
Well, if I know that Limbe is not a local name,
yes,
and there are people who researched it and found out that this was a corruption of a German name, then you think that they would know, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe they are not that competent.
They're not that competent or that good.
Yeah.
The other one you did was We Are Expendable No More. I don't really want us to go through each of them, but We Are Expendable No More was one that, like I've already said, it had thousands and thousands of views. I think it's over 100,000 views. If you look at all the medias all the platforms that it went on. And that one you were particularly inspired. Tell me a little more about that. Just give a little background to it.
Again, it was a revolt against the questioning of our humanity as a people. The British, apparently one of the colonial officers, had said that the people of Southern Cameroons were expendable. Spoken about the conspiracy that the British engaged in order to make us what de Gaulle has called a little gift from the Queen of England to France.
Yes.
So it was in that description of us as being good for nothing, as being expendable. And as a human being, when somebody qualifies you as being expendable, it's revolting.
Yes, absolutely.
So that piece was inspired by my revulsion towards that characterization of me as a person and us as a people as being expendable. Obviously, we're not expendable.
No, we're not expendable, and that's why I was so captured by that piece because it really says it talks of the arrogance of the British. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That here you come, you take a piece of people, you take a piece of land, you forget about the people there, and then you start. And that's why they've been pushing us either from pushing us with Nigerians, then pushing us to Nigeria, wanted to incorporate us as though we are, just a piece of land being shared among who they believe have the power to do that.
It's more than arrogance, it's racist. And I think the British, they have this insidious, especially when it comes to Ambazonia. They've played a very insidious role in where we are. And they are very silent. They are conspicuously silent about what is happening to us. And I don't think we give enough attention to the role that the British played, the role that they are playing today, and the role that they should play in the future in making sure that we regain our humanity, because that's what we're talking about. When you tell us, or you tell yourselves that we as a people are expendable, we are not human beings, right?
Yes.
We have to challenge that, and we have to call you out on it. I know we have spent a lot of the time obviously going after the French, and that's not going to change anytime soon. But I think the British deserve just as much attention, and the fact that the role that they played and the role that they are playing is very insidious. I think that's something that we should pay attention to as well.
Yes, and the reason why I found that piece very motivating for me was a total rejection, and not only a rejection but a challenge of that notion that another human being can tell another that they're expendable.
Yes.
And when you say we are expendable no more, obviously that's what the Amber Boys are saying. That's what every single Ambazonian is saying today.
What we need to recognize is that one of the strongest advocates for the Yaoundé regime is the British.
Yes.
And the reason they're doing that is because they do not want the world to examine the role that they played in our recolonization.
Yes.
In us becoming a so-called gift to the French. They did not call us a gift to La République.
Yes.
They called us a gift to the French, a gift that the French themselves acknowledged. So as I've been saying forever, our colonization is we're a colonial territory of France. The resources that come out of our land that goes to the international market, part of those funds are in the French treasury.
Yes.
They are not in the Cameroonese treasury. They are in the operations account in France.
Yes.
And my position is that as we move towards decolonization and independence from France, they will have to return that money. There will be a forensic audit, and the money that are in the operations account in France from Ambazonia will have to be returned to us.
Yes.
As reparations plus interest.
Yes.
That's my position, at least.
No, absolutely. I mean that is the ultimate position.
Yes.
It's the right position. And just to dwell on Britain again, I think the British knew what they were getting us into, because like you said in certain pieces, at the time they were doing this, there was a war of suppression going on, a very brutal genocide going on in La République du Cameroon. And remember that the British has said, you either join Nigeria or we will send you to La République, because the Dinka is very clear that La République was used as a threat.
Yes. Because
they knew how dangerous it was. But I think because of the inhumanities that the people of Ambazonia had suffered with their experience in Nigeria, they decided that they were not going to, that they will go for the devil they did not know than the devil they know.
Well, the American ambassador in Lagos at the time,
yes,
in one of the cables to Washington, he said,
yes,
the introduction of La République was to blackmail us to choose Nigeria.
Yes.
But again, our people decided to choose the devil they did not know rather than the devil they knew.
And they are, and I think one of the things that shows is how decisive our people are in determining their destiny. And like I always like to put it, that this is the last fight, because we fought, we've separated ourselves from Nigeria. We just need to separate ourselves from the evil empire, and then we become the people we want to be. I was going to skip this one, but this one is very, very important, and I know this was very close to your heart when you wrote it. We shall meet again. You wrote that piece, and when I saw it, I mean, it's just like, this is a piece that needs to go out. And I think what was the inspiration for that? Let me let you state it.
I watched a video of, I guess, Amber Boys burying one of their comrades in arms, and they were singing a song basically a war song.
Yes. Oh, Mama, don't you worry.
Correct. And it reminded me of the war songs that the South Africans used to sing. When they go to battle or when they're preparing for battle. And I think in most societies, people engage. They prep themselves, they psych themselves.
Yes.
So war songs are part of an important ritual. In warfare or when people go to battle.
Yes.
And the tone of the song was defiant. It was sorrowful, of course. You've lost someone, and it just inspired me, to make a connection between what is happening in our land and and the songs of freedom that the South Africans used to sing.
I recently watched a video where young men in my homeland bid farewell to one of Gerson's songs.
Oh, Mama, Mama, don't you worry. Papa, I'm going far away. If I happen to die in the battlefield, never mind, we shall meet again. Oh, Mama, Mama, don't you worry. Papa, I'm going far away. If I happen to die in the battlefield, never mind, we shall meet again.
It was searing, the manner in which they sang, and it made me reflect on the role of song in liberation struggles. Hearing them sing also took me back to a movie theater many years ago, where I had watched Amandla, A Revolution in 4-Part Harmony, a documentary that highlighted the role of music in the South African struggle against apartheid. Hearing them sing brought Amandla to homeland in a way quite personal and unexpected.
It was also your way of sharing with them in that loss.
Yes.
Yes. At least that was what I was thinking. I'm like, you know what? Because when we are far away, we live with the struggle, and the Amber Boys and the youth on the territory do a good job informing us about what's going on, and so it affects us. And that was a response to it, and obviously it was a great piece. This one, Peace Work Fatherland, is one that deals with a bigger picture. I don't know if you have any comment about that.
Well, symbols are very important, and they give a message.
Yes.
They tell a message. And Peace Work Fatherland, I did a lot of research into, I think you and I, into the World War II period.
Yes.
So we did a lot of research into European history, American history around that time, and obviously world history at that time. And we're very fascinated, both of us, by the Nazi period.
Yes.
Yeah,
because it was a period that people just do whatever they think, and there were no control valves.
Yes, and that is a period that basically reshaped the modern world.
The modern world, yes.
Yeah, and so as I was researching the Nazi invasion of France, the Vichy regime and stuff, it just occurred to me that the motto that the Vichy had, that basically the Nazis imposed on Vichy France. When Germany occupied and installed the Vichy regime in France, they moved swiftly to rebrand the French state. The French national motto of liberty, equality, fraternity was replaced with work, family, fatherland. The German National Socialists were making a statement of intent, a statement of what occupied or Vichy France will represent to Germany.
By August the 22nd, resistance fighters and Parisians who had been fighting for 4 days erected barricades in the city centre.
Naturally, the French rejected and resisted, this dehumanizing imposition.
On August the 29th, and to announce to the world that Paris was free, the Allies celebrated the liberation with a huge victory parade in the city. The American 28th Division was chosen to represent the Allies, and the honor of leading the parade was given to the men of the 2nd French Armored Division.
Everything in my life, the best thing ever happened to me, to be there, to be present at the capital of France, as a Frenchman.
And with the help of World War II Allied powers, including African forces, the Germans were defeated. The erstwhile occupied France of work, family, fatherland returned to the land of liberty, equality, fraternity. How viciously ironic that France now manages her African possessions such as the Republic of Cameroon, no different from how the German National Socialists managed occupied France. And in the case of the Republic of Cameroon, with an eerily familiar motto of peace, work, fatherland. Notice the subtlety. They updated the motto imposed on them by the Germans simply by replacing the word family with peace, and so branded the slave state of La République du Cameroun of 1st January 1960. This motto, this symbol or branding, reflects the essence of an evil ideology that the world thought had been vanquished in 1945 in order to usher a new era for humanity. This evil ideology is thoroughly expressed in the management of the Republic of Cameroon and by extension Ambazonia by France. This is being accomplished through cooperation agreements signed between Yaoundé and Paris and facilitated by a slave currency called the CFA. It is known as the Pacte Coloniale in French, or colonial agreement. It is an arrangement that keeps France as the last colonialist on the African continent today. Look very similar to what
the French imposed
on Cameroon.
It's not a laughable matter, but it's just funny that the similar. It just looked funny because the similarities were not coincidental.
Yes. So for me, that I called it in the piece the branding.
Yes.
Of the branding that the Nazis gave Vichy France, conquered France.
Yes.
And that the French, after being liberated by the Americans, by Africans as well, used that branding on their conquered territories in Africa, and Cameroon especially. Cameroon happened to be one of the first countries in Africa in the French Empire that challenged French authority. In 1948, went with the formation of the UPC. And I think they wanted to punish the Cameroonese people. And they said, we're going to treat you the way the Nazis treated conquered France. And we're going to humiliate you by giving you this motto. They just changed one word from the motto of Vichy France and gave it to these people. And if you remember, the national anthem of the Cameroonese had something about them being savages.
Yes.
So it was a humiliation of the Cameroonese people for daring to challenge the French authority in that land.
Wow.
So after defeating the UPC, what they call pacification, after consolidating the authority, which which they've maintained for the past 59 years, with this person who is still sitting there as their agent or asset, the humiliation continues. We were brought into this humiliation effectively on October 1, and we are saying, we're not going to be part of this anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was the inspiration for that piece. It wasn't quite. It was inspired by our knowledge of history, our knowledge of what the German National Socialists did to their occupied territories, and that the French used that framework of Nazi occupation to impose it and create what we call today France-Afrique.
Yes, is it in the same piece that you talked about the creation of the French franc and connecting it with the former German colonial officer in Namibia?
Correct.
Yes,
I believe so. Yeah.
Yes. So the whole world came and saved the French from their Nazi occupiers, and the French turned around and did exactly the same thing, and like you mentioned it, that a lot of Africans went and died to save them from.
Correct.
That's if that's not evil, I don't know what it is. Other pieces that we've done, and I've surprised you with phone calls, partly because I know what I'm going to get. We've done a lot of the on the phone shows. The last show that we did, which was a response to Paul Biya, what has fascinated me about that show and your responses were that the other responses that came after that, I mean, they were in line with what you said.
Well, the reaction has to be the same, right?
Yes.
Reasonable people think the same way about the same issues, So it's a farce, and the way things have unfolded, I think has confirmed that.
Yes, and I think from now we have some time to actually, do some analysis of the effects of Paul Biya's speech. I think the response from the rest of the world actually showed that Paul Biya did the people of Ambazonia a favor, because the people of Ambazonia already knew that if Paul Biya were going to talk on that issue or call a dialogue, it would be what he called for. Mm-hmm. So he did not fail us. Let me say this, okay, that from your activism and from your contributions on Esteem, you're obviously fighting with the people of Ambazonia to restore what the UN actually voted for, our independence, and that independence was voted for, and we in the UN archives, we were independent on October 1, 1961. And today, we are commemorating that day. And all your work has been trying, and that's my summation, all your work has been trying to not only restore our humanity, but restore that humanity as that will be signified by the independence, the true independence. So even though we are celebrating it this time as the independence that we did not get, what do you have to say? What is significant for you on October 1?
October 1 is the day after September 30th.
Yes.
You know what happened on September 30th at the Tico International Airport?
Yes, that's the day that the British handed over what they would say is the sovereignty of Ambazonia to La République du Cameroun.
They handed over the Union Jack,
yes,
the lower Union Jack, to the visited French puppet from Cameroon, Amadou Ahidjo.
Yes.
Biya's so-called national dialogue starts on September 30th.
It should start.
It starts on September 30th.
Okay.
So you begin to see some symmetry of history.
Yes.
What are they trying to do?
Then,
so September 30th now becomes, I don't think Biya or the French people who are around him chose Monday, September 30th to begin their national dialogue I think they are taunting us.
I think I caught up now.
Yeah.
So you're saying, okay, I think everybody gets that now. So you're saying that what happened on September 30th, 1961, and Paul Biya picking his dialogue date to start on that day is not by coincidence.
Correct.
So they want to play the game, or they want to let us know.
They are taunting us.
Okay.
That's why I look at it.
Okay.
You're saying that on September 30th, you became a little gift to France from
the Queen
of England,
yes.
Symbolized by the British giving the Union Jack to Amado Aidjo rather than to Foncha. We're going to start on September 30th, 2019, another process, since you guys have revolted, another process of keeping you as the colony that you became symbolically on September 30th, 1961, when the Union Jack was lowered and given to the Garoua boy, that the French had identified.
Okay. I'm tempted to say, I think you're thinking too deep about this. You think they really sit down and they calculate all of that?
Yes.
I see the significance of what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, when you read political strategists, right, especially in the West, nothing is done without thinking, without planning.
Yes.
Every detail is managed. That's what I've learned. I believe Biya is being advised by the French, by French experts.
Yes.
And I also do believe that Biya is a French asset.
Yes.
I do believe that he was identified at a very young age, put in their puppets government as a quote-unquote technocrat to monitor and report on Aidjo, and he did that effectively throughout as he rose in the bureaucracy to become what he is today. That's my belief. So I think you have these guys who are looking at these things and they are saying that September 30th, 1961 worked for us, has worked for us so far. Look at what we've gotten out of this place. Why don't we do another September 30th, 2019? So maybe I'm as you said, maybe I'm overthinking it.
No, I don't think you are.
I think our viewers or the viewers of Esteemed TV, they may have some thoughts on that as well, let's say.
No, I think you're correct in that it is calculated, and it's calculated to say, what we're doing, we know what we're doing, and we have the power to control what happens or doesn't happen, and like you said, since you remind us that you are separate from us, we'll remind you that we own you.
Yeah, and obviously the dialogue starts on September 30th through October 4th. I think that's the duration. Now October 1 the narrative becomes more than. The narrative is now a competitive narrative between the National Dialogue and obviously the commemoration of Ambazonian Independence Day, especially the context of what happened in 2017. So.
I want to go back and remind you, because I know you know it, and I know you know it because you and I did a show on that. Remember, there was one French diplomat from La République who has said that what is happening with Ambazonians will be decided in La République du Cameroon. Remember that?
Yes.
Which country goes around saying that this struggle between Brazil and Peru is going to be settled in Peru? Is there something weird about that?
No. because it is part of international convention, right? And this may surprise a lot of people, that these French-Afrique states are viewed as French territory.
Yes, they are.
This is an internal affair of France. Cameroon is like a department of France. So they are saying that this conflict that is happening in this our is France outre-mer, in other words,
Yes,
right? France
yes,
overseas, right?
Yeah.
So this issue that is being confronted by our agent down there, we will make sure that the solution to this problem is handled by our agent down there,
Yes.
right? The world has long acknowledged or accepted that these quote-unquote former French colonies are the internal matters for the French to manage, right?
Yes.
It's not legal under international law, but it's been legitimized.
Yes.
And that's why they can confidently say that. Now, what has happened in this crisis is that the French have been humbled in a little bit. Because if you look at when crisis broke out in a typical French colony, they are the one who lead the diplomatic charge.
Yes.
At the United Nations.
And they also need the narrative of.
They did lead in, but they've pulled back here.
Yes.
Because I think they realize that in this day and age they cannot control the narrative. But also because I think the Ambazonian people have been very effective in identifying the real enemy. Because what usually happens in struggles in African countries is that the brothers identify each other as the enemy, but there's somebody else pulling the strings of the brothers. In this case, we say, you know what, the Cameroonese are not our enemy.
Yes.
Biya himself is not our enemy.
Yes.
He's a poor little asset in the hands of the French. So we're gonna address
the true enemy.
The true enemy.
Yes.
And I think it's been done effectively to such a point that now, when the French speak they even do not dare speak.
No.
You know, but when they try to speak in tongues, so to speak.
Yes, they speak like a neutral party.
Or they try to speak. But when they say something is going to be resolved in Yaoundé, that's not the neutral party speaking. You know,
no, I mean, the only reason I'm saying that is because there are times like what the French Parliament they were talking about. That remember the French Parliament, and I know what's his name, their president Emmanuel Macron has repeated that the solutions are through decentralization and through dialogue. They hear the whole world say dialogue, so they too join and say dialogue.
So I think it's important for us to point that out, because the French General Assembly, there's a report which was released to the French National Journal, is that what they call it? You know, where they store official documents, where the French foreign minister was interviewed in the French Assembly about the crisis in Cameroon, and he gave, what he thought would be the solutions. Macron, when he was in Nigeria, was interviewed about the crisis. He gave almost verbatim what the French foreign minister had said to the French National Assembly in the summer.
Yes.
Paul Biya, the French asset, is saying the same thing.
Yes.
And I just read this morning before we came on the air, I saw a post of the so-called governor of the Southwest region saying the same thing. By the way, the person who is leading the delegation of the Southwest region to the national dialogue is a Cameroonese appointed by Paul Biya. The person leading the delegation of to the talk from the Northwest region is a Cameroonese appointed by Paul Biya, and their discussions to the public media is in French. So they are representing the Ambazonian people
in the two Ambazonian,
what they call their Northwest and Southwest regions.
Yes.
There are people appointed from Paris through Paul Biya who speak French are representing the English-speaking people of Ambazonia, and they make their public declarations in French. So they are, it's
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So they are taunting us again. They are taunting the Ambazonian people. I don't know if they do not understand what is happening, or if this is deliberate, or if they want to humiliate the Ambazonian people by doing that, by showing that you're conquered. The more you resist, the more we try to show that you're a conquered people. So that's an interesting. But the thing is that you can see the line.
No, you can see it.
Which comes from the French president, the French National Assembly, Paul Biya down to his governors.
Yes.
And I'm sure you go down to his...
It's very coordinated effort.
Yes.
But you said something that the French are taking a back seat in our struggle and allowing Paul Biya look like the man in charge. And you were saying that it is because... You gave one reason. One reason is because of the effectiveness of the Ambazonian people in telling their story and in articulating the story and identifying the enemy.
Correct.
I think the second reason is that the French know the role they played in corrupting the process right from the UN, because it is the French who filed La République's membership to the UN. It's not La République, you know what I'm saying? So the place has been managed by the French. They've been very... Let me put it in a general term. The reason why the British and the French are staying very quiet is because they don't want the dirt to be unearthed. And so they're thinking that the way to contain that is just make it this African fight among these you know how they usually say it's a tribal fight. You know what I'm saying? And that's a way to brush it away. Would you think that has something to do with that?
Of course, but they are not succeeding. They have not succeeded, and as I said, the fact that Paul Biya had to come out and follow the instructions of the French National Assembly, or the response or the directive given through the foreign minister and then through Macron to call on this national dialogue. And one of the solutions that they are thinking of implementing is decentralization. Decentralization tells everybody that they are taking instructions from France. But the question the world, I'm sure they are asking, is that why would these people who are historically English speaking, with a common law system, with an educational system which is based on the English language, why are you compelling them to be French? It's not Biya people trying to compel us to be Bulus or Ewondo.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
No.
So so in whose interest is that?
It's in the interest of France. You remember you just mentioned Macron in Nigeria. When Macron was in Nigeria, he said another thing. Either was in Nigeria or in Burkina Faso. He said they're trying to make French the number one language in the world. Remember, and they're looking at that expansion in Africa. But I don't know if they really. I think the French really don't think about these things clearly, because if you look at the number of people who speak English, it's 1.35 billion people. You know what I'm saying? The number of people who speak French are less than 300 million. So I don't know how. But so you are correct. It is not La République that is trying to expand the French language. It is the French.
During one of our last discussions, we talked about schizophrenia.
Yes.
You know how many French people were killed in Rwanda? French-speaking people were killed in Rwanda?
They killed close to 1 million.
And today Rwanda is what?
It's English-speaking.
So this is the schizophrenia that we're dealing with. So it's, and we want the world to treat the French as a schizophrenic entity. So that they stop causing these catastrophes.
Yes. Let's come back.
You cannot have a schizophrenic member who sits at the Security Council.
You can say that again. Absolutely, because and I remember you were saying that it is immoral and that the United Nations has made itself to be less than what it is, or what it was supposed to be. But let's come back to the Ambazonian people, because basically what we've spelled out is the power of the enemy. So what does October 1 stand for, and what do the people of Ambazonia need to do to make it a dream come true?
We need to continue the resistance. That's a short answer to your question. Traditional independence struggle in that part of the world over the last, if we look at the case of South Sudan, if we look at the case of Eritrea, even the case of Somaliland, which is de facto independent, it takes some time.
Yes.
So we should be aware of that, and it's just getting started.
Yes.
If the struggle started at midnight and the dawn of the struggle is at 6 a.m., we're 5 minutes past midnight. So we have a long way to go.
But I think that there's some good results in that 5 minutes.
Yes.
Let me just ask you another general question. How do you feel about the struggle right now, where we are?
As I said, if the dawn is at 6 a.m. and the struggle started at midnight, we're 5 minutes after midnight. So the struggle is in a good place, given that we're just 5 minutes after midnight. I think what we have been able to accomplish, or what the Ambazonian people have been able to accomplish in these five minutes, is we've given the Ambazonian people, or the Ambazonian people now have the information, the education to form a generational ideology for resistance and for independence that will never ever be taken away. They have an identity now. They are Ambazonians. I mean, for historical convenience, we may call them Southern Cameroonians. But when you see these kids, these Amba boys, who call themselves, I think the last one I saw you put on the air was, they were calling themselves Sisiko kids.
Yes.
Well, yeah, those they are Ambazonians. They all the world call them Amba boys. The State Department recognizes them as Amba boys.
Yes.
I was looking at the State Department country report of 2018. I think they release it in April of every year, March or April of every year. And you know what they recognized? They said the leader of the separatist movement, I think they call it the president of the separatist movement.
The president, yes.
Yeah, so they're talking about the people in jail.
Yes.
So they identified Mr. Siseko Julius Ayutabe as the president of the separatist movement.
Yes.
Yes. So when we talk about this foundation that we've said, we have all of that, all of the ingredients there.
Yes.
And it is a solid foundation.
Yes.
The ideology is there, the Amba boys are there, La République and France have helped us identify a legitimate personality or charismatic leader, if you want to put it that way.
Yes.
So we've accomplished a lot in these first 5 minutes, and I believe that we'll reach our goals and become the international legal territory that the United Nations carved out for us.
Yes, and I think that by doing what they did to Siseko, they actually brought him to the status of our own Mandela right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is the pathway of most revolutions. You have the enemy helps you in certain ways that are not expected, and I think the enemy here has helped us elevate and identify someone that not only us but the international community can point to. One of the interesting things about the fallout of Biya's dialogue, when he said that I do not know who to talk to, even the Cameroonese themselves, they were saying, but you have their leader in jail. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I looked at. I did survey the commentary after the speech.
Yes.
After his address.
Yes.
A lot of the analysts that on Equinox and all of these other shows were like, just go to Kondengi.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
So again, they've helped us identify someone for now that people can point to and say, well, that's the person to speak with.
Yes. And they help not because they like, but because when you are wrong, and there's nothing you can do that will change a wrong to a right. And so anytime you want to act, the truth would force itself in, isn't it?
Exactly, correct. So within these 5 minutes, we've created an identity, we've created a brand which has established itself. The Cameroonese will continue talking about Northwest and Southwest, the Region du Noso or whatever. But Ambazonia is there, and tomorrow they will call us by our name.
Ambazonia.
Remember what Muhammad Ali did to
the Fraser?
The one who kept calling him Cassius Clay.
Yeah.
And he beat him up and was like, what's my name?
Yes.
What's my name?
Yes.
They will call us by a name.
Yes.
Very soon.
Absolutely.
I mean, so.
Absolutely. Just to tack on your 5 minute gains. Mm-hmm. One of the things that Ambazonians have gained in that 5 minutes is not only control, not only our identification and creating our fighting force, we've also controlled the narrative. Because what usually happens in these struggles is that the French or they usually jump ahead to control the narrative. Many people in the West believe that Gbagbo was kicked out because he was clinging to power, but that's not the reason why Gbagbo was kicked out, was it?
No.
And so we have stopped the French from doing that to us. We have let the world know what our problems are, and you just need to go and check all the major medias in the world and see how they're reporting our case. They're reporting it accurately, and I think that's what we have accomplished in the past 5 minutes. And I can tell you something, Terence. I think that's like half the job done right there. Because once these people come out and say, "Oh, he's clinging to power," that's a definition that was well researched, meant to be short so that they can pass on to journalists, especially the lazy ones, and then they start shouting clinging to power, and before you know, Gbagbo was called clinging to power. Meanwhile, there's a patriot. This is a patriot who wanted to open his economy for competition, wanted to move his country forward, and the French said, "No, it is our territory. We will keep it a colony for the amount of resources we get from there." And guess what? They ended up actually succeeding because they put Alassane Ouattara and Gbagbo ended up in jail in The Hague. I want to use this opportunity to wish the Ambazonian people a happy Independence Day. And Terence, end the show for us.
Happy Independence Day, Amazonia.